Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever the fuck you're tuning in. This is another episode of Tailgate Trash Talk brought to you by Backyard Sports. Bentley, how you doing, bud? We took a week off last week with the holiday. I had some parental responsibilities.
Yep.
How you doing, man? Week off, refreshed, ready to roll?
I'm feeling good, dude. I'm truly just excited to be the only national college football show that happens on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. late into the college season, talking about the high-ranking college football teams.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The only one that matters, especially.
Well, very much so, yeah. We give out winners on this show. I don't know what anybody else is doing on Tuesdays
I don't know
at
what's going
7.
on around the country, but we got winners over here. We're playing injured this week, so I'm not being arrogant and wearing my sunglasses indoors. We are playing through a scratched cornea, and I will not take off the glasses to show the world because it's not good. But just wanted to clarify, it's landmine season, but I'm not bringing the heat with these sunglasses. That's for sure. All right, well, let's get to it, man. We had a couple of close calls last week. We had an actual landmine went off for Oklahoma. Second straight week for Oklahoma after a big win over Texas. We went a combined 20-2. We had a push there with Ole Miss and Texas A&M. So not a bad week from our perspective this late in the season. Vegas is always trying to get theirs back. But talk to me, man. What do you want to talk about first here out of the gate?
Let's start off with something slight for the folks, get them warmed up before we get to the heavy hitters.
Yes, sir.
Talk about Florida State winning 24-7.
Yeah.
This weekend felt like it may be early to say this, but it felt like kind of a Heisman-defining weekend for a lot of players, right? There were some heavy hitters going head-to-head in Penix and Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
But over here on the Best Coast, Jordan Travis threw for 360 yards without Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, his top two receivers. He still went out and threw for 360 yards, and they won by 17 against a bad Pittsburgh team, obviously. But I think that Jordan Travis is, and with LSU losing it, we can get to that later. With LSU losing, Jordan Travis is making sort of a late surge in the year for that Heisman candidacy, right? Florida State continues to roll 9-0 on the season, 7-0 in conference. They looked really, really good. And I know you have articulated to me many times just how impressed you are with Keon Coleman.
Yeah,
of how much of a freak that guy is.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah. But I was impressed by Jordan Travis and that Florida State team to go on the road and get it done without their top two weapons.
Yeah, Pitt can be a tough environment too, man. They call it the zoo there, I believe, in Pittsburgh, and they can be pretty raucous. It wasn't a night game, so you don't necessarily get the sauced up environment of the evening time, but they can be game. And I know missing top two wide receivers is really what ended up why I took the points with Pitt. I wasn't sure that Florida State was going to be able to score enough. I didn't think Pitt was going to be able to score enough to beat them, but 21.5 is a lot of points. But Jordan Travis, he certainly executed the game plan even without his top two receivers, and 360. That's pretty impressive. It is getting interesting here with Heisman candidacy because we've seen Caleb Williams continues to put up numbers for USC, but they're not winning because they've got to score 80 to win games. Penix had a little bit of a lull there for, right coming off the Oregon game against Arizona State. He had a bad game, but he's still head and shoulders, I think, statistically ahead of most of the candidates. It is interesting. But yeah, with LSU losing, Florida State, they continue to win. That's going to be a lot to go in the corner of Jordan Travis. And he played very well this weekend for sure.
Yeah.
What's another game you want to get into?
This is another game that, let's see, I was on the winning side and you were on the losing side. One of the few times that I beat you here in our picks. This game featured a dark horse Heisman candidate that I am a big fan of. I'm talking about Bedlam, baby.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that this game was not played at night was an absolute travesty.
Hard miss. And because it's the last one.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. If anybody knows anything about Stillwater, Oklahoma, it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And when they play this game at night and you look up at the sky, it's neon black.
Yeah.
It's the darkest sky in America at
Yeah.
any given time.
Ain't shit for miles.
Yeah, like the northern lights there would be turned off because it's so dark up there in that sky. Regardless, Ollie Gordon comes back and carries the ball 33 times, dude.
That dude's a horse.
And he's 19 years old.
I
Like, that's crazy. 19 years old carrying the ball 33 times against a Brett Venables defense.
Yeah.
Granted, their defense is not great, but still, Brett Venables is a good coach, and he gets those guys up for games typically. But I told you 3 weeks ago, was it? Was it 3 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
That Oklahoma State had sort of figured things out there in Stillwater, that they remembered there was still a football season going on.
Yeah.
They're up to 5-1 in the conference, man.
Yeah.
They're looking for a chance to go to the conference championship game.
They got their eyes set on Texas in a few weeks, man.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I also told you after the Texas game that I was not as impressed with Oklahoma as a lot of people were. I believe you had them in your totem at one point.
Did.
It was justifiable at the time. Like, I'll give you that. But I never bought in. I didn't believe in Oklahoma. And this game just really solidifies it for me, right? If you want to be a big-time program, you have to go on the road and win these rivalry games. And Mike Gundy got these boys tuned up in Stillwater. They came out and put on an absolute show.
He's a man.
He's a man. He's 40.
Yeah, he's a little bit beyond 40 now. But
I think he's like 55 or 56 now. But regardless.
Still one of the greatest sound bites in history.
Absolutely. Those pokes out there in Stillwater have got this train rolling, and they're running the ball on everybody.
Yeah. They're playing better defense, too. I think the running game helps that a lot. But a couple of years ago, man, that defense was Oklahoma State's calling card. I remember that game they played against Baylor that came down to inches at the goal line was a defensive just slugfest. And they lost sight of that last year. Spencer Sanders was kind of trying to light the scoreboard up for them, but they're getting back to that defensive mindset, run the ball, gritty, tough, be men, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, that's a big win for Oklahoma State, and like you said, they are eyeballing potentially that Big 12 championship against Texas here in a few weeks, assuming Texas continues to roll and runs the table, and Oklahoma State wins out. That's setting up to be a nice, interesting matchup because it's two teams that can run the ball really well. Texas has been running the ball really well this year. I think it'll probably come down to quarterback play, and if Ewers is back and healthy, you might give the advantage to Texas in that game. But that Oklahoma State defense, combined with the way they were able to especially run the ball this weekend, man, that's going to be a tough out.
Yeah, for sure. Should we talk about Texas?
We should, because that was one of the near landmines that I alluded to a moment ago.
Yeah.
They run out to a 20-point lead on Kansas State. And then it's almost like they're like, we're done with this. We're just going to coast to the finish line. And Kansas State said, not so fast, my friend. Yeah, almost ran them down. Had a chance to win, man, with a field goal to maybe force another overtime, or they went for it if they had scored a touchdown there. Plus, they missed a field goal late in the game. Like, they had some chances to actually win this game and steal this from Texas. Texas survives, right? And this is the time of the year, as my caption says, it's landmine season. You got to survive these kinds of games. Texas survived it, but this weekend, they finally looked like they really missed Quinn Ewers. Because they didn't get really good quarterback play. They got a little bit out the gate, but they hit a few big plays that you can kind of chalk up to maybe broken coverages or missed assignments by Kansas State. And then suddenly you're like, holy shit, is Texas going to be able to hold on here, man? Talk to me, because you've been on the Texas train all year.
I have. I've low-key been throwing up the hook 'em all around town. If you're out and about, if you're outside, as the kids like to say, you see me throwing it up every once in a while. They really, like you said, miss Quinn Ewers, man. Malik Murphy threw those 2 picks that just about cost them this game. I don't totally understand the decision to go for the touchdown there in overtime. I kind of get it. Like you're the underdog, you're on the road, you want to go for the win. Cool. But like you won the second half. Like you were moving the ball up and down at will almost.
And I've always thought too, the pressure builds.
Yeah.
On the home favorite. The longer the road dog can stay in it. I've always been a fan. If you can extend it, extend it. You don't always want to go for the win. Sometimes it works out. Ask Brian Kelly last year, when he went for 2 against Bama. But
yep.
I'm with you. I don't understand the play call and the decision to go. And it was a bad decision in my opinion. But if you want to be aggressive, be aggressive. But that was a terrible, terrible choice of play to run too. Like, yeah. It just added up to a disastrous finish for Kansas State.
Yeah, anytime the quarterback is throwing as he's falling backwards to the ground, it's a bad play design.
Not good.
Or somebody just got beat really, really badly. But I think it was a bad play design.
Yes.
I didn't love the play. I kind of understand it, but I'm with you. I would have tried to extend the game personally. That's just my opinion. But Texas, God, they need Quinn Ewers back because I believe
he's upgraded to day. That was the last update I saw.
Okay. So
I'm sort of confident we might see him play against TCU this weekend.
Yeah. So
if he doesn't play, that TCU game feels like a potential trap game for Texas because TCU's got nothing left to play for other than the shitty bowl they're going to get into.
Mm-hmm.
In-state could knock off Texas. This is kind of their Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
So
Quinn Ewers and Malik Murphy have the same number of interceptions thrown this season.
Yeah. And Ewers has played twice as many games.
Quinn Ewers has thrown 10 more touchdowns than Malik Murphy has.
Yeah.
And Malik Murphy was a super highly recruited quarterback coming out of high school. Yeah. Like
five-star guy.
But Quinn Ewers is just that much better. Yeah. His progression that he made in the offseason and coming into this year,
he's a different guy this year. And for the last couple of years, I've always kind of he was the highest rated prospect ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coming out of high school. And the last couple of years, you see at Ohio State, he struggled a bit, then transferred and didn't look great his first year in Texas. At times he did, like the Bama game, he looked really good. But most of the year he didn't, and you were wondering if maybe it was going to be a case of kind of missed or lost potential on a guy. But as you said, the progression this offseason into
Georgia, I mean, boy, what do you say about Georgia? Like Brady Cook and Eli Drinkwitz are a wonderful college combo, right? I don't know what Brady Cook projects to be in the NFL, whatever. This is a college show. He's a fantastic college quarterback. He can spin the rock. That defense is very good in Missouri, but their offense drives the program, right? And Georgia's just kind of suffocated them in the second half. Like the score indicates it being a closer game than it actually was, right? Missouri never really felt like they were in the game. Georgia kind of dictated the flow of things. Carson Beck has progressed very well as the season has gone along. He's in my opinion a totally different quarterback than we saw week 1.
Oh yeah.
He's spreading the ball around. He's finding guys. They have tight ends to replace, quote unquote, replace as best you can. Brock Bowers being out. Their running game is as lethal as anybody in the country. Their offensive line likes to get up in your face, move to the second level, block guys downfield. I don't understand why, and we kind of talked about this before the show. I don't understand why the committee put Ohio State at number 1 other than just to get clicks. But boy, if they're not giving Georgia some bulletin board material to buzzsaw through the rest of their season, man, I really I don't like the Georgia team. I'm a Carolina fan. Obviously, I can't root for Georgia. But I have to respect how good they are, even losing the best player in college football.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like they lose Brock Bowers, who's kind of all everything, probably going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL, even despite the injury. He's a guy that projects to be like this Swiss Army knife kind of tool at the next level. And they're okay. We're going to miss him, but we're just going to go ahead and just play some incredible defense against one of the better quarterbacks in the country. And just remind everybody that we're Georgia. We've put 25% pros on the defensive side of the ball into the league the last few years, and most of them first-round picks and killing it at the next level. But we're just going to continue to restock the cupboard, and we're still here. I'm with you. I don't understand the committee with Ohio State at 1, other than maybe to get clicks. That's really the only reason I can think you're going to put Ohio State there. You can argue resume with me all you want, but Georgia's 2-time defending champs, and they're on a ridiculous, what is it now, 28 or 29 straight games that they've won. Haven't lost a home game since 2019. It's Georgia's number 1. Georgia's number 1. Let's stop pretending here that we're going to get cute and put Ohio State at number 1.
Yep.
Ugh, yeah, for sure.
Which, to derail for half a second, how fucking good is Jalen Carter?
Oh my Jesus Christ!
Is he a top 5 nose tackle already in the NFL? Like,
probably.
That man is insane.
Yeah.
And the fact that he landed in Philly is unfair.
Next to another fucking unbelievable Georgia pick. Like,
Stupid.
Come on, Jesus Christ!
I hate the NFL.
Yeah, so silly, so silly.
How do you let that happen?
Oh. What else you got on the board here?
Arizona's really fucking good. Fafita is the real deal. That man is a full-fledged elite college quarterback. That Arizona team may not beat everyone in the country, but they are not scared to go toe-to-toe and throw haymakers with anyone in the country. I'll tell you that right now. They have all the confidence in the world in that offense. And you said it a couple weeks ago, they are fast.
Yes.
Man, they have so much speed on the field at all times. Yep. And I'm a little bit upset with myself for taking the live money line for UCLA, because I had it on the second screen as I was watching the Colorado game. And then I switched over during a commercial break, and I realized that Gronk was there on the sidelines because he went to the Hall of Fame that weekend. And I was like, well, there goes the freaking UCLA.
There it goes.
A UCLA team that played 3 quarterbacks, by the way, in that game. Which, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that was crazy. I think they benched a kid, and then one got injured, and it was like, oh, buddies.
Like I said this weekend, man, if you've got 2 quarterbacks, you've got none. I don't even know what the adage is for 3 quarterbacks. Shooting for the moon at that point, I guess. But
running the wishbone offense.
Yeah, just put them all out there. Just a team full of quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Shout out BK.
Shout out BK, baby.
Shout out BK. All right, well, let's go ahead and talk about that noise we've been hearing for about a month now.
Do you hear it?
Tuscaloosa, baby. T-Town, They are playing some good football, and LSU was game for a while, and then Alabama said, we're just going to take over here and blank you for the rest of the fourth quarter and beat you by 2 touchdowns. What a gritty performance by Alabama. They get out early, then LSU kind of runs them down, takes a lead at one point, and then Alabama says, we're gonna take this over. They can run the fucking football. That offensive line, you called it early in the year, young, and they were just gonna get better. And if you didn't get Bama early, you probably weren't gonna really get them.
Yep.
And you were absolutely right, 100% correct. That offensive line is starting to take over games.
Yep.
And late in that game, they were just dominant, just resetting the line of scrimmage 3, 4, 5 yards down the field.
Yep.
And when you've got talented running backs like Alabama always has behind an offensive line like that, and Jalen Milroe can run the ball as well, you got a dual threat guy at quarterback. Lights out, my friend. Lights out. It became Alabama's game once they started to really assert themselves and start to reset that line of scrimmage. And LSU couldn't withstand the bum rush late in that game.
Absolutely. The phrase I used after the Texas game was player development.
Mm-hmm.
And you nailed it there. We talked about how young that offensive line was. They start 2 freshmen at tackle. I believe their center is a sophomore. And Milroe was very football young, right? Yep. He hadn't played a ton of games. In this game, he threw the ball 23 times and rushed it 20 just by himself.
Yeah.
Like that's the epitome of balance within an offense. And everybody, any level of football, you talk about balanced football, right? Balanced football wins games. You have the opportunity You can throw the ball, you can run the ball, you can run play action, you can run RPOs. The defense has to be prepared for anything whenever you're running a balanced offensive set, and that's exactly what Alabama is doing. Jalen Milroe has figured out how to use his arm to set up the run and then use his legs to also set up the run. There were multiple times. I can remember 2 specific touchdown plays where he was rolling out, faked a run, faked a pass, and then tucked it in, ran it into the end zone. I mean, the guy is playing at an unbelievable level at the moment. Now, fully caveated by LSU's defense is not good. LSU does not have a good defense. Got it, 100%. They're not Georgia. Cool. But that Georgia defensive line, you mentioned them putting 25 defensive players in the NFL over the last 2 seasons. Yes, we just gave them a bunch of flowers for being an incredible team. Got it. But they don't have to see Georgia they don't have to see Bama until what will end up being the SEC championship game. Those are more practices, more live game reps for player development for this young offensive line to be able to just go out there and absolutely road grade over teams. And then they throw the ball deep, and it freaking works because Jalen Milroe might have the best deep ball in college football.
Which is wild because he can't throw anything less than 20 yards.
Yep. But he can put it on a dime 45 yards down the field. It's wild.
He's throwing a bucket from 40, but he can't hit you from 10.
Yep. Another name that I told you guys to watch out for after that Texas game, Dallas Turner.
Oh, yeah.
He has turned on the Jets here recently. That guy is he's another first-round draft pick.
They're talking top Alabama. 5 possibly. Another kind of Will Anderson mold. It's crazy.
Yep.
Crazy. And he just keep churning them out.
Yep. He wasn't a huge name last year because Will Anderson was there.
Yep.
But boys,
he was productive last year, though.
Yeah. I think he finished the year with more sacks than did Will Anderson last year.
Yep.
Probably because Will Anderson drew all the attention. But regardless, I mean, that's nothing to be like. You can't shake a stick at that. I'll tell you what.
No, you lead a Nick Saban defense in sacks, you're doing all right.
Absolutely. Also, we should take a minute to shout out the JMU defensive player who had 19 and a half sacks on the season already, and then is out for the rest of the year with an injury. That sucks.
Yeah.
Let JMU go to a bowl game. Fuck the NCAA.
Yeah, the NCAA's fucking rules are so goddamn archaic. It's so stupid. You can have a top 25 team not playing a bowl. Come on. You're fucking real. Ugh. Yeah, for sure. All right, man. What else we got on the board here?
Well, the other big hitter of the weekend, a pick that, man, I thought I was going to lose it by the hook, truthfully. And in the end, got a little bit out of control. Washington went on the road and took care of business against a Caleb Williams Southern California team who fired their defensive coordinator the day after because they gave up 42 to Cal and then 52 to Washington.
Yeah.
That game was 35 all at halftime.
Yeah.
I mean,
I had over 77 and it won early in the third.
Yeah, same. I think I had 76 and a half. There was never. I watched it score.
I told my brother when I was making the pick. I said, if this was 84, I'm taking it.
Yeah, there was. You could have almost played this game to 100 and felt comfortable.
You could have taken over 99 and been sweating it.
Yeah, but I. You mentioned again before we went live tonight how you think that if Washington and Oregon meet again, you probably take Oregon. And coming out of that Oregon game with Washington, I already felt that way, right? Because we mentioned some of the Dan Lanning mistake, maybe coaching mistakes, right? However you want to justify that. In that Washington game that Dan Lanning chose to go for it, on the 4th or whatever, late in the game. If this Washington defense doesn't figure something out, they're going to have to score 50 to beat anybody, right?
Yep.
Now, they're going to do it a different way than they did this weekend with Dylan Johnson running for 256 yards, just doing literally anything he wanted to on that field. It was insane because you could see him on the field, dog tired, like hands on his knees, hand in the rock, he goes for another 15. It's like
still gashing.
Yeah. Like if you see a player that freaking exhausted and he runs through 2 arm tackles, that's just bad tackling.
It's really bad.
That SC defense is so bad, man. I might be able to run for 150 yards on them at running back.
Yeah, and I know they fired their coordinator this past weekend, but I don't hang it on him, man. I really don't. Like, sure, it's a bad defensive scheme, fine. They don't have a lot of talent on the defense. They're not putting NFL players. They're not putting players in the NFL from that defense.
Sure.
And this is kind of Lincoln Riley's calling card. They had terrible defenses at Oklahoma. He never tried to recruit defense. He always wants to recruit offense. And it's very similar, it feels like, at USC. And you would think, right, at USC, it kind of recruits itself. You're in a football hotbed. Like, just go talk to some defensive, right? Like, good grief. Hi, I'm Lincoln Riley from USC. Yes, sir. I'll take that scholarship. Come on, man. You could go get some 4-star guys. Just look as easy as that.
Just look at Chip Kelly, literally across the street. They have a top 5 defense in all of the nation.
You took them all.
Yeah.
Link don't want to talk to you? All right, come over here.
Come on, buddy. And they got a 5-star recruited quarterback.
Yeah.
Crazy to me.
Wild, dude. Wild.
I heard, I believe it was Andy Staples does the On 3 podcast. And he was talking about Grinch, the defensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. And he was saying that Grinch just, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here. I'm taking liberties with my words. He said that he basically refused to recruit guys that were the correct size to play the positions that they were at. And you could tell on Saturday night that their defensive line was getting pushed around. For everything wonderful that we said about the Alabama offensive line, Washington's offensive line looked just as good because that SC defensive line was so undersized outside of what is it, Bear, whatever his name is. The one highlight they have on the defensive line is that kid that transferred from Georgia, I believe. But yeah, I mean, they have so many issues on the defensive side of the ball, and you really nailed it saying that that's kind of Lincoln's calling card. Is he had the same issue when he was at Oklahoma. And that's probably why Brent Venables got the job, is because Oklahoma got tired of watching no defense.
Shit defense up there.
Yeah, they're like, hey, Kansas is out here beating us again. What are we doing? But yeah, I mean, I want to believe that Lincoln Riley will be able to sort of right the ship, but he's going to have to do it through the transfer portal, is my guess, because his track record does not show him recruiting defensive players.
Right. Yeah, they'll probably be pretty active in the transfer portal, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting over the next couple of years, too, because the transfer portal rules are changed now to where you only get one free transfer. That portal's going to start to thin out, I think, which I think is a good thing, right? We got a little carried away. I understand COVID was kind of the outlier, and the NCAA just kind of let it be free for all after. Hey, we'll see how this works out. But it got a little out of control, and I will give the NCAA credit for reining it back in. I think we're going to see the transfer portal be a little more judicious over the next few years as this thing kind of self-corrects.
Yep.
All right, man, what's left on the board?
I just have one question for the audience, and I hope this person is listening. I would like to speak with Tyler from Spartansburg. Is Tyler from Spartansburg on the line anywhere?
Yeah.
No? Oh, okay. All right, bud. Well, I hope you're not watching ESPN, because your team is not going to show up in the top 25 this week, because fuck Clemson. That's why. Yep. But this is not about Clemson. It's tangentially about Clemson. This is about Notre Dame.
Oof. And
one man specifically who a very close friend of mine who's a Notre Dame fan likes to refer to him as the Golden Dong. And that would be Sam Hartman. Shout out to Sam Hartman for going 0-5 in his college career against Dabo Swinney and those Clemson Tigers. He may as well have been playing for South Carolina, because we are god-awful when we play against Clemson, but that's all right. Yeah, this game was kind of shocking to me. I'm going to be honest. I knew that Clemson was not a bad football team, and it's always tough to go into Death Valley because the Clemson fans they're actually psychotic, and they are crazy people if they think that shade of orange is attractive whatsoever. But they seem to love it. Whatever, what they do up in the hill country is on them. But Notre Dame going in and losing to a 4-4 unranked Clemson team is a bad look, man. I don't like Clemson. I wish both of these teams could have lost. I don't like Notre Dame. But and I can't think of his name now. I literally just had it in my head, the head coach for Notre Dame. the young guy that they just hired. I'm going to ask a question, and it may sound crazy. Is his seat a little hot?
I think it has to be. I don't know that it's fair.
Marcus Freeman,
yeah. I don't know that it's fair necessarily to put him on the hot seat, right? But here's my justification for it, right? I think you're right that his seat has to be a little warm. Last year, you give them a pass because they had some excruciating losses last year in very Notre Dame fashion, right? Mm-hmm. But Brian Kelly leaving was pretty abrupt. I don't think many people really thought Brian Kelly was going to leave. I know that the LSU opening sort of sparked this whole quick, like, hey, maybe Brian Kelly's getting right. Money and that's my family. But
family.
But the thing about that was it was so abrupt, and you kind of give him a pass for last year, right? I'm with you. I liked Marcus Freeman. I loved the in-house hire. I loved how the players responded when they made the announcement that he was going to be the coach, right? Felt like a good fit. This year, it felt like they had the pieces in place. They've got a really good running game, really good offensive line. They finally have a quarterback, or at least we talked about the fact that they finally had a quarterback, and they were really good defensively. Well, what do? You go and lay an egg with 10 men on the field on consecutive plays and lose in the most Notre Dame fashion that you can lose. Then you go and lay an egg. Who'd they lose to 2 weeks ago? Louisville. And they got dominated by Louisville. And then they go into this game, and this was not an 8-point game. This was not a one-score football game. Right. Clemson dominated Notre Dame in this game. And that's not a good Clemson team, right? We know that they've got talent. They've got some guys. They've got some dudes, and they're not as bad probably as 4-4 might lead you to believe, but they are not on Notre Dame's level this year. Yet, Notre Dame goes into Clemson, into Death Valley during the day, not a night game in Death Valley, and they get, in my opinion, just dominated. So I think you're right. His seat's probably warm. I don't know that Notre Dame makes a move, although we have seen in the past Notre Dame is not afraid to make a move quick. They've fired a couple of Willingham. They fired him really quickly. Before him, they had another guy, and I can't remember his name, but they fired him after 1 or 2 years or a year and a half. They are not afraid to pay coaches to go away.
Yep.
And we know they've got the boosters. They've got the money. It's a football school. Touchdown Jesus, all that. It probably is warm. And if there's a candidate out there that they like, I would not be surprised if they give him the pink slip and go find their guy. What do you think? Yeah. Do you think his seat's warm?
So I think it's warm, right? They're going to end the year at 9-3, and they'll get a bowl game. I don't know if Sam Hartman thinks he's an NFL quarterback or not. Whether he chooses to play in the bowl game, I will probably determine the outcome of that game, right? But to finish,
they're not getting a New Year's game anymore.
No. They're not getting a New Year's. They're going to get a December bowl.
Yep.
But to go, again, we give him a pass for last year, right? Understood. You go and you bring in Sam Hartman to compete for a college football playoff position, right? And you and I talked about it at the beginning of the year. He's seen everything. He's played 5,000 snaps, like whatever, the whole deal, right? They're going to finish the year 9-3, but they're going to have losses to Ohio State, Louisville, Clemson. They will have one ranked win on their season, and that was a Southern Cal win that against a team that we know anymore. Exactly. We know that team is flawed, right?
Yeah.
So I think his seat is warm, and then they give him this full recruiting cycle. He will have his guys in, right? Because you recruit guys as juniors, they play senior year, so this will be his third year coaching, so he'll have a full recruiting cycle, right? So he'll have his guys there. He'll have a second year with the transfer portal. Yet he will have his third quarterback in 3 years.
Yeah.
And boy, I don't know, man. You mentioned it. They're not afraid to pull the plug, pay guys to go away. So I think his seat is warm currently, and next year, if it goes poorly for them, And who, because the schedule has not been released, right, for next season. So we don't know who they're going to play.
Right.
With the conference realignment, no idea what's going to happen to that schedule.
Yep.
I can't say confidently if they're going to have Ohio State, SC, Clemson, Stanford. I don't know. They're probably going to have Clemson because of the ACC thing. But I don't know. I think his seat is warm. I think next year, if it starts poorly, it probably gets pretty hot.
Yeah. So you don't see them making a move this offseason?
I don't, only because the point I brought up about the full recruiting cycle, right? It takes at least 2 seasons to get a full recruiting class in the door.
Yep.
Guys that were juniors when he got hired, they'll be freshmen on campus this upcoming spring, I guess, technically, if they reclass. But again, the 3 quarterbacks in 3 years, like, that's not very Notre Dame.
And I don't think they have that guy on the roster either.
No.
They're going to have to either bring in a freshman and give him the reins, or they're going to have to find a guy in the transfer portal to play quarterback for them next year. So,
and
you're going to be teaching a guy the system again.
Yeah.
This year.
And they're going to be competing against Southern Cal for that same guy in the transfer portal because they're losing their quarterback as well.
Yep.
And if you have a choice to go to Notre Dame and play quarterback or go to Lincoln Riley in SC and play quarterback, I tell you who I'm picking.
Especially on the heels of Caleb Williams likely going number 1.
Yeah, like I'll tell you where I'm going real quick.
Yep, for sure. All right, man. What's left on the board? Anything you want to touch base on?
We should probably shout out just a couple of quick shout outs. We don't have to delve into it. Ole Miss gets a big win to stay 5-1 in the conference, going into this matchup with Georgia this weekend that we can talk about. Shout out Lane Kiffin. They tried to give it away. That A&M team, dear God.
Yeah.
Let's see. Air Force loses to Army. That kind of sucked.
Shout out Black Knights, man.
Yeah.
What an upset. Almost 20-point dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, that was 20.
Yeah. That was crazy. Typically, I would root for Army over Air Force 100%, but you love to see any of the service academies playing really well. Like when Navy was ranked, 5 years ago or whatever. That was super fun.
Yep.
Also, a super, super big shout out to Utah for figuring out their offense.
Dude.
They scored 55. That's crazy.
Going into this weekend's game, if you're Utah, you're hoping that offense travels.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Kansas for not falling into the trap game.
Yes.
They won on the road after a big, big win over Oklahoma last weekend. So shout out to them. Looks like they're going. Yeah. Yep. Looks like they're going with their backup quarterback for the rest of the year, I believe. Which, kind of sucks, but we mentioned it a couple weeks ago. He's borderline just as good as Jalen Wilson or Jalen Daniels. So good for them.
A little better throwing the football, too. Not as good running, but
right.
A little better throwing the football.
Right. And Tulane, dude, they won. So good for them.
Yeah, Tulane, we love them. Love the green wave, but they've been hanging on in these games. It's crazy. They're not really putting their thumb on teams the way that kind of expect them to in the Sun Belt there.
Yep.
All right, well, let's jump into this week, man. We have a couple of big matchups, and the board is not as stacked as we've had in some weeks, but we've got some big-time matchups.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to save that Big Ten matchup probably for last. So give me something you want to talk about here on the board, not Michigan, Penn State.
Okay. Let's talk about Utah-Washington, man.
Yeah.
Utah-Washington. Washington is getting a lot of points.
Yeah.
You mentioned it week 0 when we were talking about the Utah-Florida matchup. The Utah defense is good, man. The Utah defense is really, really freaking good. They can suffocate anybody when they play their A game. They're going to have to play their A game this weekend when they go and they play Oregon. I cannot find it on my sheet over here on the right, and I feel like a fool. They're playing Washington this weekend. Where is it on my screen? There it is.
Yep.
Sorry. Yeah, they have to go to Washington. They're going to Seattle. It's probably going to be chilly, which is not going to bother Utah. But we know that colder games tend to lean defensively, right? The unders usually hit a little bit more. Teams like to slow the pace down and run the ball. That does not favor Washington. And we know that Washington's defense, as we mentioned, the last 2 weeks have given up freaking 94 points in 2 games, which is a little bit scary seeing a Utah team score 55 last week and come into your stadium and you're like, man, we're going to have to play against, one of the 5-10 best defensive teams in the country when their offense is coming off a super hot performance. This is going to be an exciting game, in my opinion. It may not be as high scoring as people might think, just looking at these the scores from last weekend, right? You look at, what did they score? 107 combined points. Yeah. These two teams last weekend. Are
we talking ourselves out of Washington here on the show?
I'm not talking myself out of Washington. I expect Washington to win the game. I just think it's going to end. Their defense is going to have to play better than they have the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
I expect it to be somewhat of a slugfest, in my opinion. We're going to see more than one punt, like we saw last weekend. But I still think Washington wins. I think Utah probably covers, though.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What else? Give me another matchup here that's interesting.
Can I offer you Tennessee and Missouri?
You can absolutely offer me Tennessee and Missouri because we are on opposite sides of Tennessee, Missouri.
Oh my gosh, man!
It's basically a pick'em game, right?
Yeah,
-1+1, but
yeah. And I took the home team. These are both. I think this might be one of the most evenly matched games we've seen all year long.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, they both can score points in bunches. They both have a little bit of a defense, but this game just seems fun to me. Like this is the reason you watch college football, right? Yep. Two teams interconference or in conference rather. They're not necessarily rivals, but anytime you play a team that's in your conference, both SEC East, like they're looking to be the next team to challenge Georgia in the East, right? They're both better than Florida. We know that Florida's not that great. They're both better than South Carolina. They both beat South Carolina this year. I mean, they're looking to establish themselves as a team that is going to push Georgia in the East, hopefully next year to be able to get to Atlanta to play whatever team comes out of the West in the conference championship game. I think it should be a lot of fun. Probably some fireworks, if I'm honest.
58.5. I'm taking the over, and I'm tuning in for sure. This is going to be an exciting one. A couple of offenses that we had some questions about Tennessee coming into the year in terms of reloading the shelf or reloading the cupboards because they lost a lot of talent to the NFL. Jalen Hyatt, Hendon Hooker, obviously, who was the engine for that offense last year. They lost some offensive line. They lost the receiver that played opposite of Hyatt. His name's eluding me right now, but they lost a lot of talent on that offense, and they seem to have picked up. They're doing a pretty good job there. Josh Heupel is doing a really good job of bringing along that offense and just kind of having a system.
Yep.
Interesting game, 58.5. I'm definitely betting the over on that.
I love that.
What else you got here? Big matchup.
Let's see, man. I would want to bring up Alabama, Kentucky, but that's a noon kickoff. If that's a night kickoff, I think it's maybe a little different. Yeah. I know that Tennessee went into Lexington at night and handled business against Kentucky. But I
got a feeling Bama's going to bully Kentucky.
I agree. I agree with you. That's why I took the points.
Yep.
I think I don't have my picks in front of me, but regardless, Alabama probably going to bully. They're gonna run the clock. They're going to shorten the game, and that's really what Kentucky wants to do to other teams. So if they try to do it back this game, what do we have? 48.5. Probably the under, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But this seems like
a 24-10 kind of slugfest.
Yeah. Because that Alabama defense is really good against the run.
Yep.
Their secondary is young. That's kind of where they struggle the most on the defensive side of the ball.
Yep.
Maybe the most. Okay, so Tennessee, Missouri is the most evenly balanced matchup of the weekend. But Ole Miss has to go to Georgia this weekend.
Yeah.
And I've said it before, and I'll say it again for the people here. We spent a good portion of the early part of the podcast talking about how good Georgia is. But you're getting this Georgia team at home after being disrespected twice in a row because the CFP committee just put out their rankings tonight, and they put Ohio State 1 again.
Yep.
More bulletin board material for a team playing at home at night.
Lane Kiffin should send some hate mail to the CFP.
Oh, my gosh, dude.
They don't need more motivation.
They don't. They truly, truly do not. This is a top 10 matchup that I don't feel It's a 10.5-point spread in a top 10 matchup. Like,
I know.
If that doesn't
it
tell you
doesn't feel like
everything,
enough.
like,
Yeah.
Now Georgia has not been great against the spread this year.
Yeah.
But I don't think it really matters in this
They've
one.
been facing some big spreads too. Vegas has been
yes,
very generous.
Yeah,
in Georgia games,
and those numbers have come down recently
Yes.
with Brock Bowers going out.
Yep.
I would not be surprised if Georgia wins this by 2 scores.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you. I think they're feeling a little disrespected by the CFP committee.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Miami, Florida State, because we talked a bit about Florida State off the top. Miami playing for some pride, I think. This is a team that was undefeated a few weeks ago, and they've hit a pretty bad stumble. Some bad coaching decisions have hurt them, some untimely turnovers. This is an in-state rivalry that goes back to the 80s, 90s, when both of these programs were premier programs, right? They were at the top and flashy, primetime, Michael Irvin, Ed Reed, all them guys. Miami and Florida State had, Charlie Ward winning Heisman, yada, yada.
Bobby Bowden.
I'm really interested in this matchup this weekend because I much like I talked about with who the hell was it a moment ago, that TCU against Texas, that maybe their Super Bowl, right? This might be Miami's Super Bowl. And I could see them coming out playing hard. I don't know if they're going to knock off Florida State, but I'm taking the points. 14.5 feels like a lot in this game because it's a big rivalry game. Do you give Miami a chance? I know you laid the points with Florida State, but you feel comfortable giving up 2 touchdowns?
No.
I know they're getting Keon Coleman back, and I believe they'll have the whole repertoire back, right?
Right. Even if they didn't, I feel pretty good about Florida State.
Pretty good?
Yeah. This is one of those games, man, like the Miami fan base is wonderful, right? They're a little older than a lot of the college fan bases probably are, in that they're like the Cowboys fan base, right? They remember the glory days. You mentioned it, the 90s and the early aughts with Miami and the Hurricanes, and they were so good, and they had all the Ed Reed and Willis Pagaihi and all the Sean Taylor, all the boys at Clinton Portis, all those guys that were down there in Miami, winning titles and doing whatnot. The Florida State fan base, or rather the Miami fan base, doesn't travel as well as people might suspect. And that includes in-state games, right? Like, we've seen this matchup in Tallahassee before, and it's just dominated by Florida State fans, which is crazy because, like, it's a drive, but, like, it's in-state to go from Miami to Tallahassee. I fully expect this freaking in-state rivalry to be full-throated Florida State fans. There's rumor on the street that Emory Williams could be playing quarterback for Miami this weekend instead of Tyler Van Dyke, who's thrown, I believe, 5 interceptions in his last 2 games or something like that.
He just threw another one.
Oh yeah?
A moment ago, he just threw another one.
Crazy. Yeah, and Oklahoma still sucks. I have no issue laying the 14.5. Miami has hit a skid like you don't see often from very talented college football teams. And I don't think that going to Florida State is the place to get off the skids.
That's fair.
But I've been wrong before. Once.
Haven't we all? All right. Anything else you want to talk about before we kind of tear the Band-Aid off that is the Big Ten right now?
Do you give SC any chance against Oregon this weekend?
No, it's going to be a high-scoring affair, but I think they keep it sort of close because they're going to be able to score, but I don't think Oregon beats them by 3 scores. But this is a 10-point game probably. Give me another like 55-45 game or something along those lines. You
like the over then?
I do like the over. What is it? It's
73.5.
73.5. I thought it was around there. Yeah, I'm betting the over probably in all USC games the rest of the way.
That's fair.
They're like the Washington Wizards of college football.
Yes, which you have been cashing in on heavily this year.
6-0 on
That's
Wizards
awesome.
Overs. Thank you, Wizards.
That's awesome.
Not winning many games, but we're winning overs.
Yep. All right, so before Before we get, I have two more questions for you, and then we can go to your.
Yes,
because I know you want to talk about Penn State. I got it.
Yeah. No.
Oh, you don't want to go?
I'm off the Penn State.
I mean, we have to talk about them. They're playing Michigan this weekend.
We'll talk about them in passing.
Okay, all right, in passing. All right. That being said, where was my? Florida at LSU. LSU coming off a loss, 14-point favorites. Do they bounce back with Jaden Daniels coming off what is possibly a concussion? Do we think that Florida stands any chance? I know we talked about how bad LSU's defense is. Florida's offense is not terrible. What do we think here?
I waffled hard on this one. I had Florida for a minute, give me the 14 points, but I don't know, man. Like, Graham Mertz is still bad, but they can run the ball. They got that running game going. LSU's defense isn't great. Maybe they do keep it close. I'm going to lay the points. I feel kind of good about it, but I did waffle on this one. I think if Florida covers that 14 points, I think I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay. All right, and the most intriguing number of the weekend.
Yeah.
The single most intriguing number of the weekend comes in at 28.5.
Yeah.
That is the over-under for Rutgers at Iowa this weekend. The lowest ever recorded over-under.
Which beats last week's number that Iowa had, which was the lowest ever recorded, and they still went under. So, yes, I'm going under. I'm going under.
Okay.
Give me 13-9. Iowa beating Rutgers or Rutgers beating. I don't care who wins. It's going to be a fucking ugly game. Iowa just has this way of just uglying up football, man. It's so bad.
Yeah.
And they're going to continue to just set new numbers for fucking lowest over-unders. Wild. Vegas, I can't imagine Vegas in a college football game. The people setting the spread look at the algorithm that spits out 28.5, and they go, what the fuck is this? And then they look and, it's Iowa. All right, we're good.
I will say, so this is a 1.5 point spread. Iowa's minus 1.5. Rutgers is 6-1 against the spread this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Give me 13-9 Rutgers then.
13-9 Rutgers. Okay. All right. I'll take it. All right.
Take the 1.5 and bet the under.
All right. Now, you sure you don't want to talk about Penn State?
I don't want to talk about Penn State. We are going to talk about that game mostly because the Big Ten is fucking popping off right now. Mm-hmm. So Michigan goes into a big matchup this weekend. It's Penn State. They got beat up by Ohio State, but they're still, a top 10, top 15 team in the country. Still have some talent. But Michigan is dealing with a lot of craziness right now. And on the field, 4.5, I expect them to cover that pretty easily. I think they're a better football team. I've lost faith in Penn State. I was on the Penn State wagon all year, fell off when they couldn't figure out the offense against Ohio State at all. So, but I want to get your opinion on this whole fucking sign stealing thing, because we now have allegations against Michigan, video of Connor Stallions dressing up as a Central Michigan staffer with Google Glass on the side recording shit. We have Maurice Clarett coming out and saying we've been doing this since the 90s. We have other former Big Ten athletes saying, yeah, this happens all the time. And now we have Michigan saying we have proof that Michigan State, Purdue, and another Big Ten team, I forget which one was in the announcement, but we have proof that they have been exchanging our signs. Talk to me about this whole thing and what do you think the fallout is actually going to be? Stallions has already resigned as well, right? So we have a martyr that maybe the NCAA looks and says that dude was kind of a rogue guy and whatever. But what the hell's going to happen?
So if you'll allow me, I would like to add 2 more bullet points to your list of things.
Yeah.
Purdue this weekend dressed up like a freaking box of highlighters on the sideline with their play callers. They had red, yellow, purple, and green freaking coaches' hoodies on the sideline. That was awesome.
Yep.
Also, I saw it came out today that apparently Connor Stallions used to sell refurbished vacuums on Amazon, and they got like 1-star reviews because they were just terrible. They came and they were like disassembled. Yeah, or they didn't work. Like, it was just awful. Like, I love this Connor Stalions guy. He might be my favorite character ever in college football. That being said, what do I think is going to happen? My assumption is that Michigan will get the 2013 Louisville treatment, in that they will vacate wins. Now, Louisville won a national title, so, the banner gets taken down, whatever, got it. But if you watch ACC Network, the college basketball, like I was watching last night for the Duke game, they introduced Luke Hancock as a national title winner. So, like, I love that, personally. But so my assumption is that the same kind of thing happens to them, or like what happened to Pete Carroll at SC. Like, Jim Harbaugh potentially wins the national title this year, and then he leaves, and then they get all these wins taken away, and then the school gets freaking recruiting sanctions or scholarships taken away, or they get banned from the postseason, which would suck for them because we're going to the 12-team playoff next year. So, like, they don't get the home games, they don't get the revenue, stuff like that. So there are financial implications. But I really think that Harbaugh is going to get away with this, right? And you can say whatever you want about him not knowing. Stallion said that he wasn't employed by anyone on the staff to go out and do these things. He did it of his own right.
Yeah, Pitino claimed ignorance with hookers and cocaine.
Yep.
At Louisville, and we know that ain't fucking.
So did Hugh Freeze at freaking Ole Miss, and now he's back in the SEC. But so my assumption is the same thing will happen as we've seen many, many times over with the NCAA, and it will be the kids that go to the school over the next 5 years that are going to have to deal with the ramifications, and it won't actually be the people that should be held accountable for this illegal sign stealing scandal, right? Because we know that sign stealing on the field is allowed. You can have a guy standing next to your coach watching the sideline being like, oh, when they wave two hands, they switch to cover two or whatever. Got it. Whatever it's in the sequence of plays during the game, that's fine. There's nothing you can do about that. That's just football. But like you said, we have video evidence of Connor Stalions dressing up as a CMU coach on the sideline. Like, that's nail in the coffin, dude. Freaking Barry, Michigan. Ban him for the rest of the season. Like, it makes no sense to me why this team is still allowed to go out and play, especially conference games.
Yeah.
When we know in the video of in the Ohio State game last year, when CJ Stroud gets to play call in, and then freaking Stallions is right there with this playbook next to the coach, like, hey, they're switching to this. It makes no sense to me why this is still ongoing. It seems to be an open and shut case, in my opinion. But I think the only people that will really suffer any real ramifications are players that come in the future.
Yep, 2024 and beyond. That's how it always works in college, man. My big thing is, I think the reason that we haven't seen the hammer kind of fall yet is because the NCAA is worried about what happened this week. That they're going to come down and they're going to hit Michigan with the ban hammer, the death penalty, whatever punishment they're going to come with. And then we're going to have to listen the way we did with Spygate in the NFL. We're going to have to listen for the next 5 years of, like, the NFL fucked this up, right? Well, the NCAA fucked this up because everybody's doing it. Everybody's exchanging signs. Everybody's taping shit. Everybody's doing this. Everybody's doing that. When in all reality, the NCAA has the solution. It already exists. Let's fucking get rid of these dumb signs. Like, I don't want to say dumb because you and I were talking before the show. Like, they're fucking entertaining, right? Looking on the sideline and seeing, like, chicks in bikinis and, like, Mickey Mouse and fruit and shit like that. Like, it's cool, right? Like, you see all this crazy shit, the highlighter thing this weekend as well. Like, that stuff's kind of cool and fun and funny, but the solution's right there in front of them. Just put headsets in the helmets and let's move on.
Yep.
We no longer have to worry about sign stealing because now you're just talking. And the NFL has done this for fucking 30 years with headsets in the helmets. Probably longer than that, to be honest. I think they had headsets in like the 70s and 80s even, but it's so crazy to me that the NCAA, they missed the bus on NAL, and now they're going to miss the bus on this whole sign stealing microphones headset thing because they're just fucking dinosaurs. And yes, I'm with you 100%. Michigan took this too far, but I am not convinced that Michigan is the only team doing this stuff.
No.
I am fully convinced that this is an Eric Mangini. I'm pissed because now my rival is winning games, and I'm going to rat him out and turn him in, and I'm not even going to think about the ramifications of this because I'm doing the same fucking thing, and now I've got to listen to it from here on. And Mangini's even come out and said, like, I regret ever turning Belichick in because we were all doing it. I was just pissed. We were losing. We couldn't beat them. I just wanted to get something over on them.
Sure.
That's what this feels like. Michigan has been the little stepbrother for 2 decades. Now they're on top in the Big Ten, and everybody wants to knock them off, and they see an opportunity. This is opening Pandora's box, in my opinion, and I don't know if the NCAA wants to do that. I believe that that's a big part of why they haven't really hit the band hammer yet on Michigan. I think it's probably coming, but I don't know how stiff of a penalty they're going to give them. Maybe they vacate some wins. I'm not really sure, to be honest, because we're going to get a lot of back and forth over the next 6 months probably for all of this. They're doing it. I don't know, man. We'll see. All right, bud. Well, let's talk Totem on our way out the door here. Not a lot of shakeup. Our top 3, my top 4 all stayed the same. You moved Ohio State in at 4 and Oregon out of your top 4. Anything big? I don't know that there's a huge shakeup. I think clearly we don't agree with the CFP committee on Ohio State because I've got them at 3, you've got them at 4, and basically we're splitting hairs between Ohio State and Florida State. Like, I understand that. But what are your takeaways from the CFP committee and in our Totem here?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in my thought process here that the winner of the SEC title game gets in, whether that's Alabama or Georgia. Florida State's going to win the ACC. They'll be undefeated. They'll get in. I think Ohio State runs the table. I don't think they run the table. I think Michigan runs the table. And I think Ohio State's only loss is to Michigan. And then I think that's where it gets a little more interesting, right? Because whoever wins the Pac-12 is going to have a loss. But, like, if Alabama beats Georgia, then it puts them both at 1 loss, right? So I kind of have – I'm confident in my top 3 being SEC winner, Florida State, Big Ten winner. Like, I'm very, very confident in that, right? And then you kind of have the mixture of 1 loss Georgia, 1 loss Washington if they lose to Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game, 1 loss Ohio State if they lose to Michigan in the Big Ten championship game, 1 loss Michigan, right? Like, you kind of have a jumble there at the number 4 position, but it could be any semblance of like 7 teams that no matter how it plays out, like, you're looking at this group of teams. But my totem right now is the teams that I've watched all year long that I think are the best at this given moment.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of throw Bama in here just to kind of throw a wrench in the whole totem, but I didn't know who to take out because
it's tough.
I'm with you. I look at this and I say, like, Bama beating Georgia in the SEC title game really throws a wrench in kind of the CFP because, in my opinion, SEC champion is in.
Mm-hmm.
1 loss Georgia is in my opinion. Then you've got Big Ten.
Yep.
If one of them 2 runs the table, which at this point it's probably one of those 2 is going to run the table, and then you've got to split hairs between if Oregon knocks off Washington in the Pac-12 championship, and they're a 1 loss champion, versus a 1 loss runner up in the Big Ten. How do you measure that, right? Because the Pac-12 has been better than expected, but Big Ten's still the Big Ten, and you've run the gamut, and Ohio State's got a big non-conference win too, right? Which is what the CFP has kind of said, like, oh, they got the better resume at this point, right? Fine, whatever. You can miss me with that, but I get it. They've got a really good out-of-conference win. So yeah, I'm with you, and I'm here for it. I want to see Bama beat Georgia in the SEC title game, and then we really got to figure out who the CFP is going to put in. Are we going to get a one-loss runner-up over a one-loss champion? We'll see. In the past, they've kind of contradicted their own saying that winning a conference championship is a big deal. Well, we saw TCU, I believe, was kind of they didn't have the Big 12 championship game that season, and TCU got left out for a one-loss runner-up. So we'll see. CFP committee is interesting at times, controversial most of the time.
I hope Florida State loses to Miami and the ACC just gets left out in totality.
Yeah.
And then Alabama beats Georgia, so we get Georgia, Bama, winner of the Big 10, and then the winner of the Pac-12. Yeah, that's what I want.
That'd be really interesting for sure. The ACC sucks anyway, so stick to basketball.
Shout out Duke, baby! Shout out Duke!
Yeah, landing some big recruits this week too.
Let's go! Let's go!
Buddy. Yeah, buddy. All right, man. Well, let's get out of here. I appreciate you. Good episode. Really appreciate you tuning in every week. For those of you in the comments section.
Yep.
This has been another episode of Tailgate Trash Talk, brought to you by Backyard Sports. For Bentley and the rest of us here at Backyard Sports, we are